wouldn't you? It's March 18th, 2019. This is a special meeting of the Dickinson City Council. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Roll call.
Mayor Julie Masters.
Here.
Councilmember Charles Newman. Here. Councilmember Bruce Henderson. Here, sir. Councilmember Walter Wilson. I'm here. Councilmember Wally Dietz. Here. Councilmember Louis Decker. Present. Councilmember William King. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2 is consideration possible action concerning the police command staff and dispatcher compensation. Who's taking the lead? Chief?
First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here. I know you don't like special meetings, but it means so much to the men and women of the Dickinson Police Department and our future. All we're asking for is an opportunity to show you what, in our opinion, is an issue with hiring and retaining employees. I'm not saying it's the reason, but it is a major issue. And it has truly been a team effort by the command staff putting all this together, the packets that you have. Captain Jacobs is going to be taking the lead on details. If you have questions, he has gotten more into this than the rest of us.
Just to clarify, is there something different in what you gave us up here than what we have?
It's more formatted issue in the way it was in the agenda package.
Okay.
So I just cleaned up some of the current issues.
Okay.
The history, I think you all have the emails that I had sent. Says how we got started with this and why we're here tonight. And what I'm asking is not out of line. It's in line with an audit that was done, or a survey that was done some 3 years ago. I was tasked to find the majority or the preponderance of the money within my budget this year, because we are in the middle of a budget year, and I know that that's an issue as well. But we not only found the money for these raises for the dispatchers, but we also found the money to handle the compression issue with the lieutenant and the captain's pay as well. And as it stands right now, all the positions were filled at Dickinson Police Department. Come next, when we sit down with the next budget, if every position was filled, that's from patrol to jailer, dispatch, and the staff, it would have an impact of $20,113 on the budget.
Chief, that's I may interrupt for just a second.
Yes, sir.
So that 20,000, that's with everybody, all positions filled.
Next year's budget.
Yes, sir. And that is with us addressing the compression issues.
Yes, sir.
And that is with dispatchers moved to what rate?
1811
1811.
per hour starting.
Okay, and that's the ones we're hoping to recruit are going to be coming in at
1811.
1811, and we want to move all of the existing ones to 1811 also.
Correct. Fix the compression.
There'll be, the two of them will be addressed. So it takes into account the incumbent employees, and it'll move them 4% above the minimum that we're suggesting of 1811, so it puts them in line with the compression issue that will naturally occur when we move the market.
Okay, so they'll be 4% over 18.
The ones that have been in less than 2 years, the two that we have that are on the top end of the market, if this is approved, the market will be adjusted and they'll be realigned to the top end of the market. So with those numbers plugged in, it addresses the new hire vacant positions and then addresses the compression issue for existing dispatchers. Puts them in line with where they should be in the market currently. As well as all the CVA issues that were addressed earlier, the command staff issues, all that's been recalculated into that attachment that you've got.
Comments?
Was Chief finished his presentation? Had he finished his presentation?
I was finished.
That was it when Bruce.
Sorry to interrupt.
I think we're getting into the hot seat, so.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going, you were on a point. I wanted to make sure that I understood what you were saying.
Yeah, that was it. It's a major impact to the budget. Again, that's it. All positions are filled. I can't remember the last time we had every position filled going into a budget year.
Well, still
Then I was over that point.
Well,
So what?
go ahead.
So what positions do you think we will not fill that's in the budget?
That's hard to say.
And
what does that salary amount equate to?
Well, when we start the fiscal year, we have, the full-time equivalency positions for, the line for patrol and or dispatch, whatever is open when we do the budget prep, which was the one document that we got. So as vacancies occur and as a realignment happens, like the way I created this was, I took the salaries of the officers and the staff that had already left during that budget year, and I reassigned them the base salaries. So as far as open positions, we are in the process of hiring as many as we can, and then pace that in such a way where we don't overburden the training staff to get them up and running. So we anticipate, if we're able to make these adjustments, get us to where we can fill the dispatch, the urgency right now. And as we're doing that, we can start on the officer positions, but there's a built-in savings by every vacant position for however long it's vacant.
And that's what I'm trying to rationalize. I'm trying to sort out in my mind. I realize you have some vacancies in dispatch, and Chief mentioned if all positions were filled, it would tax the budget next year with $20,000.
Right.
So I realize there's some positions you're not going to fill between now and next year.
No, that's just when I did this analysis, when I did this forecasting, when I did attachment C to your deal.
All right, because I have 4 sheets of paper in front of me.
You should have
1, 2, 3, 4.
You only got 4?
5. Okay. Yeah, it's
Okay, so the one that's yellow or the
Yes.
across the top is the original document that Stephanie created to create the budget for payroll. And if you look at the last page, it'll show you basically what's in our budget as far as payroll. Okay? That 3821,552. Very bottom, one of the numbers. You see that?
Yeah. That was the wrong sheet.
I got to give Stephanie credit because we've never actually been able to look at these documents where she's created this spreadsheet to calculate all the taxes and clothing allowance
So
certification.
we don't need this sheet.
Well, that one is what I modified.
Modify.
So I gave you both, so in case anyone wanted to look at how the process was, the first one, the one in beige, is the original document from Stephanie. The one that you're holding with the yellow highlights is the modification that I made where I looked at the budget impact. So I took, if you look at the first one, it's got Captain Chrome and it's got other positions. Those have been reassigned on the second one to where it's a new base salary for patrol positions. I did the same thing throughout the document where Vernita left, the communications supervisor. I replaced that with a proposed minimum that we're requesting. So all the things that are in there are based on the proposal amounts as well as the existing dispatcher compression. All those baseline salaries have been input into the equations. And at the end of that process, the difference on this page, or on this document, on the last page, the difference between those two numbers at 38416, it's a $20,000 increase. But that's based on if those 8 vacant positions that I've addressed, if they were all filled at that point on March 1st when I did this compression sheet, or when I did this analysis. But since there are openings, there's 8 openings, there's a built-in savings on this current budget year until those positions are filled.
And the likelihood of them being filled by next budget year is?
And that's why we're proposing that these adjustments, the compression adjustments and the payroll adjustments, will actually be absorbed in this fiscal budget year. Doing the budget prep for next year during the budget calendar, there will be a 20,000 baseline increase. But that's anticipated anyway. We'll have to take into account the CBA adjustments that were agreed to as far as certifications and whatnot. But so at this point, we didn't have, back when we were doing the CBA, we didn't have a clear focus on the true impact of the budget. And I think at that time I told you it was going to be about 16,000. Well, that amount has already been absorbed based on the openings or the vacant positions that we have. So now that we've been able to change out Captain Crone, change out Sergeant Johnson, change out Vernita, change out some of the baseline numbers from the beginning budget, replace them with new entry-level positions, now we can see a little bit clearer what the impact of the budget is. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Deeds?
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the impact on this year's budget, with all the changes, including command staff, dispatchers, all that, is, it was totally absorbed.
I feel pretty confident that it's a net neutral, if not a savings.
Is that based on filling any of the positions? Or
Well,
all?
on the time that we still have vacancies.
Okay, so if you are magically to fill all the positions tomorrow, vacant positions, would you still be okay budget-wise for this year?
I think so. What I did this morning was I looked at our cash flow, and I did some very, very rudimentary analysis. We average about $100,000 every 2 weeks on our payroll out of, through STW. So with, I think if I'm right, there's 13 pay periods remaining. That'll leave, that'll be $1.3 million. Our current account balance is $1.58 million. So there's a surplus of $280,000 in the regular base payroll account. However, on the overtime rate, we're blowing that up, and we're on pace. We have 20,000 left. We have 30,000 left. We're on average about 20,000 a month that we're spending. So we're on pace to spend 130,000 out of overtime, and go over budget on the overtime. But the difference between the payroll and the overtime is a 170,000 remaining balance from a base. As simplest as I can, because I'm obviously just a knuckle-dragging cop and not a finance guy. But I'm thinking we're around $170,000 current burn rate. But if we hire more officers, obviously more dispatchers, that number should shrink by the time we get to the end of the budget year. And I think we should be at least net neutral, if not a saving somewhere less than obviously 170,000.
Captain Jake, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted him to repeat a number that he had.
Okay.
What was the number of the total cushion you had? Was it 200,000?
On the for the base salary for the PTE, the full-time position, we're at a 280 projection, 280,000 remaining. Is what I'm. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. You looked at some of the cash flows, and I think we're.
On the expense side, I looked at on the revenue side.
So, no, I still have, okay, so, we saw an email where you are authorized to go 1775 on hiring, starting pay. That was determined not to be enough, so you want, now you want.
No, sir,
1811?
I don't feel we can hire at 1775 when we have the people that's going to be training the folks at 1775. They're going to be making $14.21 an hour. That's just, I'm going to have those people leave.
Well, I know, but I agree with that, but there's a different issue here. Is to recruit, you guys felt like 1775 wasn't an adequate starting salary for a new recruit. So it needed to be 1811 for a new
Be
recruit.
competitive.
And then 4% above that for, which is what, 21? 21 something? I don't know.
For which one
The remaining dispatcher.
Right.
21?
Just to jump in on the 1775, that is the midpoint of the current position as approved by council. So
That's my next question.
that's how that came is, and according to the policy, that is the limit of my authority, is based on recruitment. If there is difficulty in recruitment, which the chief articulated to me, I'm authorized from going from the minimum to the midpoint, and that's how I derived 1775. From that point, the policy clearly states that if there is a parity situation, that the council is the role and responsibility to adjust the parity, not the city administrator.
And that's why we're having the meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so,
We very easily could, we're very appreciative of increasing the recruitment rate, the new hire rate, but that automatically creates potential, recurrent employee issues.
Right, so where, if we approve everything that you're asking for, the command staff adjustments and the dispatch and all that, where does that put these employees in the pay range? We're gonna have to adjust the pay ranges, are they still within are they still within the min-max of the approved pay
I
range?
did some calculations on that earlier as well. The minimum, the median average and the mean out of the county that we looked at, all the ones that originally went on the list, that's right at $7.13 an hour. Well, I know I did some adjustments.
Well, what is the approved city pay range for a dispatcher?
Right now,
Right now?
it's 14.21 an hour starting off.
34, it's 30 to 44 with 36 being
Well, I'm looking at, we're talking hourly. So 2,072 into what?
That's in the first colorful thing here you handed out. So it goes from 1421 to 2131.
Yeah, starting at 29,552.
Which one are you looking at, Alan?
It's the very first one.
This one here, the first attachment, it shows the current ranges at the very top for the dispatchers and communication supervisors.
Oh, here it is.
He's got it.
Okay, so 1421 to 2131, so the, that range would need to be upped, right?
Correct. The next column down is the breakdown of the proposed adjustments to the market. The 1811 to 2493.
So that's really what you're asking for, is that for that pay range to be adjusted?
Correct.
Not just an hourly starting rate?
Correct. Going back to the original data sheet, I had a couple tasks to start with. Was get it competitive, and see how much of an impact it was on the budget, and then make the compression issue adjustments. So the first task was finding out what the county range was that we're looking at. I compared that with the survey that was done 3 years ago that was submitted to council. I think that's attachment also that's in there, this black computer. And then at that time, it showed that we were 14.1% below on the starting and 11.4 on the maximum. So I used kind of a variation of both. I took those ranges between minimum and maximum, how much we were below. I found the target range of base salary that gets us to the $18 an hour that we were looking at. And I found what that percentage increase was, which was 27.5%, which puts us where we would be for in-market and a little bit above market mid. And then I used the same percentage difference for the minimum and maximum ranges. And then I just applied those percentage differences to the communication supervisor as well.
So essentially, you're looking for a $3 or less than that. $2 and some cents.
Around three, basically around three.
Around $3 an hour raise on max for dispatcher. Okay, so I think I understand that. So on the command staff, is there still an issue, or was there ever an issue with the promotion of the captain? Is that, because that was in the budget, right? That salary?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was higher than that. Captain Crohn's,
I'm not talking about Captain Crown, I'm talking about the guy that got promoted.
Captain Stoker, the well-dressed gentleman over here.
Yeah.
He knows. So, typically there's a bump in pay. Were you able to give him a bump in pay within budget?
Well, actually, we left him at the same because as a sergeant, at that time, he was making more than captain. So when he jumped over to captain, he left his salary the same, which would have been an increase as a captain.
And actually what that does, if you look at this document,
That's crazy.
I don't understand.
so when we did this, when I put these numbers together as far as these numbers here, for the captain ranges and whatnot. So part of the issue is in this employee handbook, the appendix B that this references shows all the market ranges for everyone that's employed, all the different positions.
Right.
So part of the proposal is to make the appropriate adjustment to the captain as well as create a lieutenant's classification because it's not in the current appendix. So if those numbers are approved, and those were just, I believe they were just a 5% increase or 6% to keep it in line with market, is where I came up with these captain numbers. So that would put Sergeant Stoker already in line for Captain Stoker to where he's about where he should be in the market. He's above the minimum, and he's in a year or two range, pay-wise, above where it would be on for a minimum level. Does that make sense? He's at a rate above what we're proposing is the market minimum. So he's already in line with the market.
Okay. So there's no issue there.
So, looking at all the papers you've given us, this one here is what you're asking.
That one would be what would need to be amended or put into.
Put into the appendix.
Those pay ranges, and then the adjustments to the current employees.
Right.
Have them corrected.
And keep in mind, right now, we've got 5 positions in patrol that we could fill right now. We have, Frank has gone through the backgrounds, we have the people to fill them. The problem with it is we don't have FTOs to train those people. So we're not bringing those people on payroll because if we did, they would be very non-productive and would be paying them. So we can bring 2 of them on, which he's in the process of doing. We have 2 FTOs. Actually, we have 3, but one's fixing to leave. The FTOs. They have to go through that 16-week course before we can cut them loose. So rather than bringing 5 new officers on, 3 of them be sitting around twiddling their thumbs getting paid. So we're not bringing them on until we have the FTOs to train them. So there's a savings there. That's why we can't go out and fill this thing that quick because we don't have the people to train them.
So back to the discrepancies. You have an asterisk here with lieutenant and captain amounts are based on 2017 market survey. Is that the cities or is that the police departments?
Come up with this document as well.
And this is the one we did,
Correct.
the city did.
Correct. And they're, all of them are highlighted on here. There's not an actual captain's level position, so it's, the city used assistant police chief for those ranges. There is a lieutenant, but we didn't use, you see those numbers are blank for the city because at the time that the survey was done, we didn't have a lieutenant. So I took the market minimums and maximums and added 6% because when this was done, city council would authorize at least a 6% increase. So to keep it in line with market, since we're doing the adjustments, I just made that part of it as well.
You didn't add 6% to the max, did you?
Yeah.
I mean, well, maybe I don't understand this completely.
Somebody clarify for me, did we adopt this? Because I don't remember adopting this survey. I thought we adopted one
The
farther
ranges,
back than that.
it shows the adopted city minimums and maximums. Back when if you look through this document and you compare it to the appendix B that's in the handbook that was adopted, I think, during that same year, those ranges are the ones that are out of this document here.
Just don't remember doing adopting. I know we did one years ago. And then we did another survey, but I don't think it ever was brought to council.
Yeah, this was the one where it actually, the circle number here was I think a lot more that Stephanie presented. You guys requested to have certain large cities taken out, and the numbers brought back.
Right.
So across the board, it ended up being 3% citywide. But when you
clarification on I always was under the impression that whenever we gave an across-the-board cost of living raise, that didn't change the ranges, that it changed your salary within the ranges. So when you say you added 6% to the upper limit, I'm not, it doesn't compute.
Well, it's very similar to what I did when we were doing the numbers for market ranges for the CBA. When we came up with those new min and max numbers for the collective bargaining agreement, that was the same mathematical equation I did at that point, was adjust both ends of the market the same amount that we were.
Well, I'll say it again, it was my impression, I don't know about anybody else up here, but it was my impression that the min-max ranges were adjusted for market every 3 years. Is that what we're on the schedule?
Which is this year they were.
And that any raises that came about within that 3 years simply moved the employee within that min-max, but we were using that those market salary ranges as our baseline. Because we had people that actually, if we gave them a 3% raise, we're going to actually be making more than the max, and that was an issue that had to be dealt with on a case.
Right, we did that.
Case basis.
Yeah, because we had to cut them a lump sum check.
Right.
There was, I think, three.
We didn't change.
But we didn't do that to dispatch. We didn't cut them up.
Yeah, there's actually several that
2 years.
were on the max side of it that probably just didn't get caught and actually got increased to the max.
Well,
So,
what I'm saying is that we approved, council approved the market ranges,
correct.
min-max. And so when I'm questioning why you would add 6% to the,
Well, for the
max.
same reason why we're here asking for the same thing for the dispatchers. We're just
well,
trying to
you can add 6% to the salary or whatever it is
Well,
within that
going
range.
back to this original data, it showed at that time the captains were about 4% below. So at that, below the market. So when this was adopted, the same principle as
You're saying 4% below max?
No, they were 4% below minimum.
Okay.
They were 1.5%, 2% below max. So I just made the adjustment accordingly, like we're doing with the dispatchers and communication supervisors. And while, whenever it comes to doing the survey, which hopefully that'll be done this year, maybe it'll show out that there's not an adjustment that needs to be made.
Well,
Maybe we're right in line with that.
well, I guess what I'm saying is you changed the min-max and are asking us to change the min-max. When you still have room to go ahead and bring them up 4% and still be within the approved min-max, right? If you didn't touch the min-max, right, you can still ask for an adjustment because of salary compression.
Correct.
And still be, and get the whole request approved, and still be within the approved min-max without changing the min-max.
Correct. Per capita, correct.
Right.
Now, with lieutenant, there is no min-max approved by city.
Okay.
So does it make you guys assistant police chiefs based on this?
That's the
That's just a
classification
title.
that data used.
All right, so,
And again, well, yeah, he's addressing the conversion issues, the right to say the same as far as that's irrelevant. They can be addressed whenever they need to be addressed. There does need to be a lieutenant classification in it because there's not currently one.
okay.
The primary problem, I want to get distracted by this.
But it won't keep him from getting a paycheck if we don't add that today. I guess that's my biggest heartburn here is this needs to be a budget discussion. I think the dispatchers was an immediate need because it is. The sergeant, lieutenant, captains. I just don't see this as an emergency. We start budget talks in May, and it needs to be part of the budget. And if we're talking about, and I believe you were, Captain Jacob, changing the ranges, this needs to be citywide. This needs to be addressed in every department and not just one taken out of the whole city. I don't believe it's fair, and we need to look at ranges again. We need to look at ranges for the entire city. That's my opinion. I have no problem with the dispatchers. I don't think we should address their ranges. We just need to give them those pay increases to make them, because we need them. They are a matter of life safety here in Dickinson. But I think this other can wait till we can address all of this with the entire city, because we may have issues in other departments as well.
Mayor,
It's not keeping anybody from getting a paycheck.
I understand that, but I'm asking these guys to do a job. When you have sergeants making a base pay more than they are, talk about not fair. That's not fair. Years past, when we've done the contracts, if there was a difference in compensation, that happened right after the contract was settled. We went in and fixed their pay, adjusted their pay. And it has been done before.
And I get the part about the budget, but if the revenue is not there, the budget is a moot point. If
You asked me
we
to
aren't
find the money
collecting-
within my budget, and I did that.
Yes, but if it has, we have to think about the revenues. We know we probably won't collect the 97% of property taxes that we normally collect. I just think we need to get more information. I don't even know what percentage of the property taxes we've collected yet. I really believe this is a budget issue. This is nothing personal. I love you guys. You do a great job. But this needs to be addressed citywide. It's not fair to the other departments because they may be having the same issues, but they just haven't brought it to our attention. I 100% agree with the dispatchers that need to be addressed because we cannot fill those positions, and it is a life safety issue. I think it ought to be two motions when council ever decides. I think it needs to be separated out.
Which two?
Separate the dispatcher issue from the command staff issue.
Mayor, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
I want to make sure before there's ever any motions made that we're on the right page here. Okay, so,
You talk about the market,
yeah, I mean,
maximum.
even on the dispatcher, I think what you're proposing to pay is within their market range. Is that correct? Or is the 3281, is that outside the approved market range for a supervisor?
It's fine. 1811, so there's 29.5 is the minimum, 36 is the mid, and 44 is the high. So in terms of an 1811 for dispatchers, that's within the market. I told the chief
Okay.
to go to 1775 because that was the midpoint. If the council wants to move that higher and stay within the range, that's their prerogative. But that's what, so yes, to answer your question, the answer is 18 something is in range.
Okay, so the motion on that would be then to, by policy, authorize a starting pay of 1811 for dispatcher and new hires.
And then adjust the current employees
Plus 4% over that number?
within that range.
Well, the four is just, it only affects two of them, the other two are at the top end of the market. Right? Three.
You have some that are top,
There's three.
Two that are at the top end of the market.
Two at the top of the market, but three that it would affect. The new hire 2 weeks ago, plus the two existing that are 2 years.
The
New hire, 3 that you're affecting, 2 you're not affecting, and it gives a vacancy of 3, that would be 1811. So you'd have 3 with a 4% increase, 3 at 1811, and 2 that are at the top of the range, which fills the entire dispatch FTEs as allocated in the budget.
is that what you're asking for?
Or are you asking for an increase to the guys that are at the max?
That's part
If I could just
So
check
you're asking for the max to be,
That would put the two that are topped out, that would put them at the top, well, they're at the top now, but it wouldn't do anything for them.
would that be Black and Duval?
Yeah.
So those two, Black and Duval, are actually above the market max at the moment. Because when council, in the special meeting on September the 5th, 2017, authorized a 3% pay raise, it was given specifically not just as a lump sum, but actually added to the base salary. So it bumped them over the maximum. So those two dispatchers already make more than the current maximum.
Okay.
And was Appendix B adopted by ordinance when it was adopted?
It was adopted by ordinance, but it can be amended by resolution.
Any portions thereof? And would that be noted? Because Appendix B, I think, would be helpful if the entire Appendix B was in front of council so that they can, because to Mr. Dietz's point, that it has all positions in. So whatever the motion would be, would you need to be mindful of how we're amending Appendix B? And that's what I was.
If you'd like Appendix B, I can take a few minutes and put it up on the board.
Put it up, we have it.
If you'd like to.
It's there.
Councilman Decker?
Dickinson, we train people, everybody knows it, they come and get them, people leave. I don't have any problem with what they came up with. Forget the two motions, we either do this now, but I've heard 20,000, right? It's gonna be for next year. I have no problem with one motion, and I'm tired. The safety of everybody in this town, whether they're coming through or going, we've lost the EMS people, we've lost fire marshal. We keep losing people. That's a bad rap, and I can't see it. Thank you.
If I can get a clarification again, I'm sorry, I think we've hashed this about 12 times, but I'm still trying to write it down so it makes sense to me. All right, so I'm looking at, we have 6 dispatchers and 3 open positions. Is that a correct statement? Turk, Evans, Parker, Black, Duval, and Courier.
Right, with Evans on the way out.
Okay, well, I'm gonna leave them in there for now for this conversation.
Courier is the supervisor.
Okay, super. All right, so Evans is preparing to leave, right? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take her out of the equation. So that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4 dispatchers and a supervisor. Okay, so that's 2 that are, basically we're discussing a 27% increase, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And just to make a note that Turk has only been here 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Very infant stages of training.
Okay. And Black and Duval, are you advocating to an increase in them at all? Okay, and that, the increase would be what percentage?
To the proposed market range plans.
3.9.
3.9 and 10.3?
Duval would be 2.3, or $2.32, and Black would be 94 cents.
Okay, but it's still 3.9% and 10.3%. Okay. Well, I'm kind of in the same boat as Councilman Decker here. As far as like, man, I got a lot of numbers here, a lot of percentages, a little bit all over the map, and I'm trying like heck to figure out what a motion would actually look like, and how to say this properly without unintended consequences. Okay, I think we're initiating with, there's no question, first part of the motion would be to raise the recruiting rate for dispatchers to $18.11. Is that a correct statement by everybody?
Starting.
Okay, starting new hire rate is $18.11. Okay. Now, forgive me for asking you to rehash the same information for the 15th time. But that leaves me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a supervisor. And I'm not feeling like I understand this to be a percentage for addressing these individually. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Now, is there any kind of general statement that addresses this? And help me out, anybody. What would be a general statement that would address these properly? Well,
Would you take them individually?
what we've heard from the city administrator is that he's approved what he can by law. So we're authorizing current dispatchers pay increase to whatever. Is it the market max or is it the market mid?
Above the mid.
Above the mid.
And
Well,
quite frankly, you don't, if it's council's, on the 1811, I went to the midpoint. So if you guys want to authorize me to go above that, there's nothing in policy that said I needed to stop at the midpoint. I just thought that was a good starting point because we haven't gone to the market above 14. And looking at the data that the department provided to me, I thought that was a good starting point. So quite frankly, you guys can unilaterally set the rate, or you can essentially give me direction and I can say, we'll start it at 1811 or whatever. So I have authority to set the rate as long as it's within the market. I have that authority based on policy. So I'm comfortable in listening to the conversation to establish a recruiting rate. Now, whether that's just a recruiting rate, or if that's the new minimum, or if that's the maximum, that's a different conversation. But in terms of actually needing a motion, just procedurally speaking, needing a motion to establish a starting rate above the mid, you guys don't need to do that because based on the policy, I have the authority to, under recruiting circumstances, to establish a pay rate, and I quote, above the minimum rate. So I can set that anywhere, and I'm here present, so I'm listening to that. So from a motion standpoint, dealing with the dispatchers, if it is, I mean, part of the chief and I didn't have the full conversation on after the 775. There was no central counter or discussion. It was let's have a special meeting. So from that perspective, that's why we're here. But if you guys want to do 1811, because at one time it was 1720, and I threw out 1775, and he threw out one email 1811. So just on the dispatchers from a recruiting standpoint, I can take care of that. I've heard what you said. In terms of the parity pay with the existing employees, that needs to be dealt from the council's perspective. And as far as the command staff, that's completely council prerogative. So,
Okay. The 1811 though is based on the market minimum.
not
it's within the market.
not in the current minutes fee. That's in the proposed minutes fee.
Mayor.
What they have proposed, which is beyond my scope, is a new market range, which I don't have any authority to approve.
And I don't think we should be approving ranges at this time. I think that's a budget discussion and it needs to be citywide. So I think that what you're asking is council to give you direction to do the 1811. Everybody seems to concur with that.
I've got that direction.
Okay, so then,
That's totally.
so here's my confusion because I'm looking at the different dispatchers at a 27.7 increase, a 28.1% increase. So I'm like, do we handle this individually or?
That's the compression issue that we're concerned about. When the 1775 discussion happened amongst us, the initial concern is if we have new hires being trained by people who make $4 an hour or less,
That's not even
only council can make
No,
that adjustment.
we're past the new hires, that's a done deal. Now we're talking about how do we, give direction. I think I heard a 4% over what they're currently making or over the 1811. Everybody, let's just say everybody that's it's in the $14 or whatever it is range. They all move to the 1811. And then what I thought I understood was give them an additional 4% that would get them over the new hires. Is that correct?
Yes, that aligns them where they should be within
Okay.
the pay structure.
So,
So that an existing employee that's been here 2 years, yes, they get a X number of percent raise, but it now puts them at starting pay for the people who they're training.
Right,
So unless there's a 4%.
right.
And
I just wanted to clarify.
4% is because they've been here 2 years.
Right,
And that's an appropriate amount of separation between a new hire
right.
and an existing employee.
So that, just want to clarify that.
That's all.
Everybody's going to
All I
1811,
put together,
except with the ones that are already here, go to an additional 4%.
not all,
Okay,
because there's 2 relatively new ones and 2 senior ones
They're a max.
that are max, that are actually above the market max. If council decides not to make any adjustment with them at all, I'm sure they'll be fine because they're at the top of the max, but I have to advocate on their behalf.
yeah,
And that's why I put this together for the chief was, and again, it's in the same spirit that we did the collective bargaining agreement, where those market ranges were adjusted in that agreement. Wholeheartedly, for those three, the detective, sergeant, patrol, those markets were adjusted. I just took that same concept that council was familiar with and applied it to this proposal. To clean up, that way, at least these 5 different categories are off your plate when it does come to do the rest of the budget, because it's net neutral. And then you have less to worry about when you do the full budget for the other departments.
We're almost a half a year through this particular budget. You know, we're going over this and going over this. You're talking 20,000 to do everything.
I'm talking taxpayer money.
I'm
Just want to
talking
be
too.
fiscally
No,
responsible.
you didn't even want to be here, I don't think.
But you're talking taxpayer money that's already been budgeted for
That's
this
right.
year.
But do we know how much revenue has been collected? Are we going to get the 97%?
We were
It
ahead of
doesn't make any
schedule.
difference because we proposed that budget based on the revenue we figured we were gonna have.
Yes, if we figured we were going to have. Are we going to have it?
Are you
That's
gonna
totally
change everything else in the budget?
I want to talk about, I want to get this clarified so we can move on past
Stephanie
this.
told me we were ahead of schedule on collecting from last year, just before she left here. Now, are you telling me that you know that we're not?
That's not what I said.
Okay.
Okay,
It
so
could be adjusted.
here's the thing. I think we need, the question is, if I'm correct, is you're asking for the, and we're talking about the 4%, is council okay with raising that max? Not, I don't even want to address the whole market survey, because I think that needs to be a citywide discussion.
Can I ask?
The additional 4% for the guys that are at the max now.
What we're asking for is the proposed new market ranges, which addresses all the issues of new hire, recruiting, and it addresses current employees where they fall on it based on what their current rate is. So we're asking for their salaries to be adjusted to where they fall in the market, and to make an adjustment to the market to where we're at, the starting pay is at the market minimum. That simplifies moving forward, because that market survey will be off, that part of the market survey for the next time will be off your plate.
If I may, okay, so, again, looking back at this document right here. Okay, this has market mid, market max. You guys are presenting some different numbers, okay? The existing, with no modification to this at all, okay? The market min is 34,386, okay? All of the lower ranking dispatchers are below our min already, with no adjustment to it. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Our 2 higher paid ones are not beyond the max yet. Because the max is 50,147. Now, Black basically only has about a $200 cushion. This is the one I'm looking at from here. This is 17.
Yep, that other page where you said it's not at the max, that's their new proposed one, the one on your far right.
Right, I know. I'm looking at that. But I'm saying this is what they're proposing. I'm saying this is the one that we discussed. This is from 17. Okay. This one?
Did you amend the very last page?
Was this document amended at all, or is this the 2017 information?
No, that's from,
2017, right?
all of them is highlight and make a note on
Circle
what
it red.
represents what classification.
Okay. All right, fantastic. That'll be fun. Okay, so this was,
That's, so what I asked,
I wanted to get you guys is, this is the Appendix B in its entirety, so that you can understand related to, as we complete a market survey, because, and I think Webster's doing one now that we're participating in, similar to what was done in 16, as we complete a market survey, these are all the positions in Appendix B, which is also the exact policy that I referenced.
where's dispatcher in this? It's on the back of page 1.
Back of page 1.
There's a second page. And the max, market max is 44.
So that's why, yeah, so this is what council has approved in 2015 at ordinance. So that's where,
In line with what the mayor said, we did not adopt the 17 one. It was for
And if you-
review.
right.
Which
So
we've actually used it
And if
2 or
you
3
look at the
times.
numbers, they're actually the same numbers that are in this document.
17?
If you compare the 911, that's the same number. as
And again, documentation isn't always the strength that needs to be related to some of these. So I'm not for sure how many ordinances were used to put this policy together. But again, from my perspective, that's where I came up with that 1775 as the 36,940 within, which was the mid-market as approved by council.
I want to add a couple things to that, just so you all understand, on that particular document that you're looking at right there, there have been new city employees that we brought on payroll here.
This one?
That document that you're looking at right there, we have new employees that we brought on, namely the facilities manager, we've got, not the management assistant, there's another position out there that's been brought in after that was approved in 2015, which you will not see that document. It has been approved by council previously. So you guys do have the power to do this anytime you get ready to do it, not just at budget time.
Thank you for explaining our power.
Yes. Yes, I just want to make sure, because I hear a lot of discussion about that, and you can do it at any time.
Questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, so back to the chase here. So, what I'm hearing is that on the max, you're looking for approval to give raises, right? So you're okay with the max as it is now till budget year? You want authorization to recruit at whatever the market will stand, even if it's $20 an hour, right? And you want to be able to raise existing employees to at least have parity with who they're training. And I'm not sure what kind of flexibility we have now on that. I'm talking about staff. Are your raises approved, or your salaries approved by council? Or your department or the city administrator is not authorized?
No.
To give raises within?
No.
department?
No.
Okay. So,
There's a couple of
the wording that, there needs to be, it sounds like a certain amount of flexibility on where you end up on starting.
Absolutely. And if it simplifies things for council, you just want to make some similar motion as far as the starting pay being what we're proposing, and then maybe.
And authorizing parity with the existing.
Authorizing parity for the incumbent employees.
Okay.
You can leave me off or keep me in, or.
Well, no,
The only thing is there's not a lieutenant category, that's the only thing I'm concerned about. So that, even that, there could be adjustments made on one thing to make the parity on it.
But to Captain Mason's point, some of these positions that, as I've been newly hired as the city administrator, as I look at some of these position assessments within the city structure, I intend to bring a proposal for Appendix B to more reflect the positions that are currently out there. So at that point, we can bring a lieutenant conversation into the fold. So I'm open to any of those kind of conversations.
But that's not gonna happen until budget time, is that correct? Between
That's
now
my,
and then.
that's my preference, but you guys make the call.
Well, and that still leaves Lieutenant Price in the same boat that he's in right now for another 6 months, does it not? With the sergeant potentially making more money than you? Well, there's compression on, Captain Jekyll as well.
You guys can unilaterally raise salaries.
Correct. So any of the individuals involved, dispatching myself or the same price, that would be the parity issue that you guys have to authorize. And I feel awkward even being here since I'm involved in that, but I'm fighting on behalf of dispatching, if that makes sense. So, yes, to answer your point, anything that gets to the new hires, 1811, and addresses the incumbent employees, the current employees, and addresses the parity issues on that. However that vehicle looks like is basically what we're asking.
Just as food for thought, I mean, clearly the policy requires council to participate in this conversation. If it is your guys' preference at any point, a lot of this we can exercise judgment and do this at the staff level, but as the policy is currently written, council is required to participate in these conversations.
And that's why we're having the meeting. That's why we're here.
And as far as the captain's lieutenant, when we were going through this, when I saw that we have a sergeant's position open, Captain Jacob could go fill that sergeant's position and get a pay raise.
Right.
That's what it is. And that's when I said, well, we got to do something with that as well. That's just so wrong.
Right.
We are a paramilitary organization, like it or not. We are a paramilitary organization. The military doesn't do that. I don't know base pay, and I don't know if the police, I heard it's been said there's other agencies that do that. I would like to hear the name of one police agency in the state, or any other state, that has a sergeant base pay making more than a captain. They may do it for a very short time, but it's fixed as soon as it's found during contract.
This discrepancy came up when collective bargaining
Yes, sir.
agreement was reached
Yes, sir.
with the collective bargaining,
Correct.
which includes sergeant down,
Yes, sir.
but it doesn't include dispatchers or judges.
Dispatchers, jailers,
Secretaries.
Admin staff.
So, when did we ratify that? Was it December?
Yes.
So since December, this has been going on for 2.5 months, 3 months probably. We only have one meeting. So it's been going on 3 months.
So we either need to give the city administrator direction or somebody do something here.
I've heard enough. I'm just trying to figure out, I'm back to where I was 20 minutes ago as far as what would a motion look like that would, I mean, is it as simple as council gives authority to come in at a 1811 and
The proposed amount, proposed on that third block.
I make a motion to adopt the new market ranges for dispatchers, communication supervisor, and making appropriate adjustments to current employees.
Second.
To adjust parity. Is that, Mayor, do you want it to be two separates?
I
I have no problem doing that.
okay. We have a motion. Well, we have a motion. Who seconded it? All right, now you can do discussion.
When you say current employees, that includes all current employees over there.
Yeah. Well,
You have to use specific employees.
That's the one I'm looking
Because
for.
if you use current employees, that would mean jailers.
You specified dispatcher. was the intent?
His intent is to do the parity for the captain,
Mhm.
the lieutenant, and the dispatcher.
Could you read the motion back, because I heard, the motion was, I recommend adopting the new market ranges for the dispatchers. Communication supervisor. Okay, so my question was, I think what I heard was that the market range adjustment wasn't necessary, that it was just to give them the authority to increase the starting recruiting rate offer, new hires, and to adjust existing employees, or to give existing employees parity. There wasn't anything.
Existing in the communications department.
I think what you're saying, Councilman, is the proposed rate.
So-
For that third block.
If I can make a procedural process.
Go ahead.
Because at the end of the day, it's my job to implement this, and I don't need any more. So, 1811, I would prefer the motion specifically spell out the employees and their pay rate, so there's no confusion, no future discussions needed, and then we'll bring Appendix P back, and what we'll end up doing, we'll either Appendix B back, and we'll either adjust Appendix B to fit council's wishes, or we'll once again do another parity pay at that time, because it's my intent to bring it back during the budget process. So the department has provided you specific salary rates per employee, establish that by a resolution, we can document it to the record, and I can turn that over to payroll, and they can make the appropriate changes, just tell me the effective date. That's my preference, so there's no more confusion.
It doesn't address the parity part.
Yes. It absolutely
That'll be
does.
the second.
Every employee, every current employee, you hit their range, and then 1811 is the new start, and the department has provided you the new hourly rate for every
For
employee.
dispatchers.
For dispatch.
No, for every employee. Every employee that they're asking for a raise on is provided in the packet.
In this packet here, the initial packet has the proposed rates for dispatchers on the first page.
Right.
It has the proposed rates for the command staff on the second page.
Am I correct in what?
Sergeant Lieutenant,
Well, I don't know.
That would,
Where are the proposed rates again, and are they in line? Are the
They're-
proposed
they're
rates in line?
they're above,
I have four.
I'm sorry.
You were asking a question, you can answer it.
No?
They're above,
are you referencing this?
everybody that is above the cap,
Everybody that is above a cap is still getting 4%, so that everybody that is, the two dispatchers are not within the Appendix B range as stated. So that's why I'm asking you to go ahead and approve their individual salaries so that there's no miscommunication.
So to approve this document.
So what he's saying is, in this document, there are proposed specific salaries for employees.
sure,
This
That was my
page,
question.
proposed,
this second page.
right?
So what he's saying is you have to go into
All these
make a resolution to make those pay adjustments to those specific employees and eliminate the market ranges and all that, be
Right.
back into this guy.
That's exactly where I was going.
That addresses all the concerns, because we've laid out the starting pay, which is going to be the 18 hours here, he has all the rights to do it. And it addresses the current issue, the current employees. So any resolution that says the following employees get the amount established, this is the vehicle that you're looking for.
He wants to amend the motion.
I'd like to amend my motion, if I may.
Councilman Decker, will you amend your second?
Yes.
Okay. The new motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the market proposals per, is there a attachment item at the end of this? Attachment A for dispatchers Turk, Parker, Black, Duval, and Supervisor Courier. And,
Evans
Well, we
is
have-
here. She may not go if
okay, and I would include Evans in that list, please. I would also like to address that it includes Lieutenant Price and Captain Jekyll, and and the numbers that were allocated in this paper.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Discussion then.
I need to expand on that relative to effective date. Is that necessary?
Would you want those, I mean, I don't know,
What's the next
Alan,
question?
maybe you could tell me. But I think you suggested we address the actual salary, the numbers, so that there's no,
Well, no, Chris already has the authority.
okay.
You can do a starting pay. That's already authorized. I think we're all in agreement that the 1811 is a good.
That is, okay. That action has been officially completed. I just sent the chief an email.
So the starting rate is
1811's done. Next.
The motion is to address the named employees.
Yep.
Okay, so do we do the effective date?
And I'm making an amendment to my motion to include effective date to be today.
Second.
We have a motion to make the effective date today, seconded by.
No, he seconded. I have a
Today,
effective the beginning of today.
18th.
Second by Councilman Decker. Do I need a
Well,
motion?
yes.
March 18th.
Waiting on you to do that.
Okay.
Now, does that work with the payroll system?
Sort of a pay, no, that's.
So we have a discussion.
We can work out those details.
So we have a discussion.
Start of a pay period, next pay period, last pay period.
Much better.
Okay.
It's easier on the.
Yeah, it is.
All right, and
That was my question, Mayor.
Start of the next pay period is the effective date. Councilman King was.
That was my question that we started the next pay period, because to do it today is going to cross a lot of.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those
Yes,
in
I'd like to
favor?
have another discussion here, so I want to make sure we're clear. By far, the police department is the largest department within the city of Dickinson. We respect, at least I do, every department we have within the city. Whether it's courts, public services, streets, I respect each department. And this issue came up as a dispatch issue. And certainly, when I called the police department to get some information the other day, I had a captain answering the phone in dispatch because we're short of staff. I'm not Donald Trump, but that's an emergency. We've got to do something, and something fast. I don't believe any department is having the kind of issue with staff that we discovered in law enforcement. To the degree that they're not able to operate. So we need to have another meeting on that then. So we shouldn't be having these kind of meetings, right? We shouldn't be having these kind of meetings because we don't just operate in the next 3 months, we operate in the next 12 to 13 months. And so we've got to get a handle on these departments and making sure they have what they need. And the mayor is right. We've got to make sure we operate fair with all departments. But we have an emergency in law enforcement. I don't look at any department as one greater than any other department. We have great people that are working hard. And we're here tonight on Monday night because of that emergency. I appreciate Captain Jacobs' initiative to look at the entire perspectives, not come back to us 2 months from now and say we got this department, this issue. So I applaud you for that. I don't think you were trying to do anything deceptive or manipulative. You were being a leader. And I appreciate that leadership that you displayed and laying it all out on the table. And tonight, yes, it's difficult, but I think that we got to make sure as we approach the budget year, we look at every department. I do believe revenue is going to be where we need it to be. I think Dickinson is moving forward. If we don't, we just make adjustments as city council and mayor with what we have. And I think we're going to do well. Dickinson is resilient, and we're going to move forward. And so I just think that this department needed the attention that we gave it tonight, and we need to make sure any other department, if you say that public works is struggling like the police department is struggling, where the supervisors are answering phones, we need to look at that as well. That's our job. And so I appreciate Mayor giving me this opportunity to have this part of comments concerning the discussion. We're not looking at any favoritism in law enforcement. We're doing what the citizens deserve and getting the services that they need.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, my God, what?
Mayor,
What,
you
Councilman?
ready to go? You ready to go?
Well, we haven't addressed the lieutenant and captain, did we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, they're addressed.
Yeah.
We did
We
address.
covered them all.
Now, my question is, between you guys, are y'all crystal clear on what's been approved and who has the authority to make the raises? And, I mean, we don't want to have to come back and say, well, there was an I that wasn't dotted or a T that wasn't crossed, as far as the parity.
Clerk will send me the motion, and I'll give it to payroll to process, and if there's any concerns, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
So y'all are in agreement on a number when we
Also-
start talking about it?
So I'm perfectly clear on what the motion is. If you'd like the minutes to reflect in the motion, not just that he said about attachment A, actually insert the numbers from attachment A.
I think
per
that's a good
employee.
idea.
I'm happy to do that. That way it's absolutely clear.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I will do so.
That's all I have.
That was the intent.
Okay, so we've had our vote.
No?
We have a little more discussion. I think. We'll do it again. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Motion to adjourn by Councilman Wilson, second by Councilman Henderson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Are you leaving, Chris?
carries.
Yes,
Time is 7:11.